This is my audience. These are my keynotes and my verbal citations. I'm Mandy Myers, and this is Introduction to Speech. I will be speaking to you today about Princess Diana. Was she a modern-day saint or a woman simply seeking public vindication? There are three main points I will be speaking to you about. First, I will discuss her introduction and the addition to the royal family. Then I will speak about her troubles and the public dissolution of her marriage. I will then finish by informing you of her humanitarian work and charitable contributions. I will begin by telling you about Princess Diana's early years. Diana Frances Spencer was born in 1961, the fourth of 5 children. The Spencer family had strong ties with the royal family, with Diana's grandmothers being ladies-in-waiting to Queen Elizabeth, the royal mother. When Diana was 16 years old, she was introduced to Charles, Prince of Wales, through her older sister Sarah, who was courting him at the time. Charles intended to marry Sarah, but Sarah did not intend to marry Charles, as she informed the local news stations. Charles was frustrated, but turned his attention to Diana. After a few months of courtship, he introducing her to the royal family. With their blessing, he asked for Diana's hand in marriage, which she accepted. According to the journal article, The Diana Phenomenon, Diana Spencer was of the ancient British royal bloodline. Her arranged marriage to Charles had been engineered to reintroduce this bloodline and legitimize the House of Windsor. On July 29, 1981, Charles and Diana were wed. I will now speak to you about the public troubles and divorce of Charles and Diana. In November of 1981, Diana announced her first pregnancy. Throughout the pregnancy, she experienced fear and feelings of inadequacy, developing postpartum depression. Though she felt depressed, she had a strong public face, and her marriage seemed strong as ever. 5 years, though, after the marriage, it started to become rocky. Charles began an extramarital affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, and Diana began an affair with their trainer, James Hewitt. Their public appearances, they had a sad disposition and were labeled by the news sources as the Glums. In 1992, leaked tapes of Diana and Charles came out showing the infidelities that they had been having. In August of 1992, Squidgygate was announced with the original leaks. The second series of tapes were leaked between Charles and Camilla, and that was labeled Camillagate in November. It was the next month that Charles and Diana announced their separation. Finally, I will speak to you about Diana's humanitarian efforts and philanthropy. Diana worked with over 100 charities as a patroness during her time with the royal family, attending hundreds of engagements each year. Although she worked with them as part of the royal family, she typically worked with charities that were not usually focused on by the royals. These charities included those with homelessness, drug addicts, youth, HIV, AIDS, leprosy. Diana may have felt compelled to these because of the fact that they were suffering as she was as well. Stated in the same old story, The Tale of Diana, Princess of Wales, trailing from lonely childhood to cold marriage, from cold marriage to fruitless quest for love, and a series of frustrated attempts to create a public role for herself, the figure of Diana as fairy tale princess was overshadowed by that of the tragic queen, drawn not only to those suffering, but to suffering itself. One charity that Diana worked with was the Halo Trust, and that focused on the landmines in third world countries and the debris that it left behind. Her work with these charities caused a lot of controversy, as people were labeling her too political, and she was called a loose cannon by Earl Howe. As stated in Death of a Princess, probably the most notable humanitarian contribution Diana made was her intervention with the campaign against landmines. While entirely laudable, and certainly when she was attacked by Tory politicians for being political, it was clear which side socialists were on. The humanitarian gesture needs to be placed on the scales along with the other events in her life. Another great impact she had was fighting on the stigma associated with HIV and AIDS. In the 80s, when people were afraid to be even in the same room with someone with this disease, Diana was photographed sitting on not only on the bed of a man with AIDS, but holding his hand. This showed compassion and reduced the stigma around the disease itself. This had such an impact that in 2017, she was posthumously given the Legacy Award from Attitude Magazine for her work with HIV and AIDS. In conclusion, I just told you facts about Princess Diana's life in the public eye. I started by informing you of her introduction and addition to the royal family. I then explained her troubles and very public dissolution of her marriage. And I lastly spoke about Diana's humanitarian work and her charitable contributions. Princess Diana's public image may have benefited from her charitable work, leading to a form of public vindication, but that does not take away from her contribution to humanity.